Welcome back, family, to the Royal Griot, where we turn the stories of our African soil into emotional gold. We are so grateful for every like, every share, and the incredible support that keeps our legacy alive. Before we dive into this dramatic tale of fortune and fate, drop a comment right now and tell us where you're watching from. Your support means the world. Now get ready. The coffee cup, a delicate, expensive porcelain piece, clattered onto the solid mahogany table of my private penthouse in Accra, spilling hot Kenyan blend across the latest Bloomberg report. Jide Okoro, the $2 billion billionaire behind Okoro Global Empire, felt a genuine jolt of cold shock that had nothing to do with the scalding liquid. This was the twist, the unexpected blow. I'd walked into the upscale Adam Café in the airport residential area to meet my loyal worker, Chief Financial Officer Segan, and clear my head from the current power struggle brewing in the boardroom. The pressure was immense. My vast fortune was under threat. Segan was late, and in my arrogance I had spotted the waitress, a thin girl maybe early 20s with a name tag that read Adwoa. She was struggling, you could see it in the slight tremor of her hand as she served. A joke, a cruel impulse born of my cold, detached heart, made me flag her down. "Waitress," I'd said, leaning back in my leather chair, a smirk playing on my lips. "My company is hemorrhaging $50 million a quarter. I need a miracle. As a joke, give me your best financial advice right now." I expected a wide-eyed giggle, a nervous, "Oh sir, I don't know," or maybe a silly suggestion. Not this. Not this direct, chilling appraisal of my character. Her first words were not financial advice, but a brutal dissection of my intent. The directness of the poor girl, no, the lady, hit me like a blow. Her dark eyes, usually reserved and downcast, now held a burning, innocent fire. "You have never lost $50 million. The only loss you know is the loss of your own humanity. You use people to feel better," she continued, her voice quiet but firm, carrying a shocking accusation. "The advice you need is not for your empire, Mr. Okoro. It's for your soul." I felt my blood run cold. How dare she? A mere waitress. My first instinct was to fire her, to ruin her life, to show her the consequences of crossing me. But a terrifying, inexplicable thought flashed through my mind. She's right. Her words had stripped my defense bare. Segan finally burst in, panting apologies. But I wasn't listening to him. I was staring at Adwoa, this mysterious stranger, who had just seen through the guarded facade of the great Jide Okoro. I paid my bill in stunned silence. But before I left, I had to know more. I needed to understand why her words affected me so deeply. "Tell me your full name," I demanded, placing a stack of crisp notes on the table, far more than the bill. Now. She didn't take the money. She simply looked me in the eye, and the quiet cliffhanger she delivered next froze me mid-stride. "My full name is Adwoa Asamoah. And I know your son." Adwoa's claim that she knew my son, Kofi, hit me with the force of a market stampede. Kofi was my carefully guarded only child, a 15-year-old boy I protected fiercely, currently away at a prestigious boarding school in the hills outside Nairobi. How could this poor girl, this waitress, possibly know him? Lies. I spat, my voice dangerously low, drawing the immediate nervous attention of Segan. "You are trying to extort me. Trying to turn a cruel joke into a payout. You want to see the consequences of blackmailing Jide Okoro? You have no idea what my lawyers will do to you." Adwoa didn't flinch. She picked up a stray napkin, slowly wiped the spilled coffee from my precious Bloomberg report, and looked at Segan with an icy politeness that showed she was completely unfazed by my threats. She was an innocent child, yet she possessed the steel of a veteran negotiator. This girl was not after my fortune. "Mr. Okoro, my motive is not your money. It's your son," she stated, her voice a calm contrast to the rising fury inside me. "Kofi calls me Sister Adwoa. He spends his weekends and some holidays at the Children's Community Center near the school. The place you funded once, years ago, and have forgotten about since. I volunteer there. I tutor the younger children, and Kofi tutors me in mathematics. We are friends." A sickening sense of dread replaced my anger. The community center. I remembered the press release, the oversized check, the photo op, a fleeting moment of performative charity meant to offset my image as a cold-hearted magnate. I hadn't thought about it since. Kofi, my son, had found a real connection with someone I dismissed as less than nothing. The consequence here wasn't financial, it was the realization of how disconnected I was from the boy I claimed to love. "He has a bright, beautiful mind, sir," Adwoa continued, her gaze soft, now focused entirely on me. "But he is also very lonely. He told me his father only speaks to him about quarterly results and the stock portfolio. You speak of $50 million loss, but your greatest loss is the time you've abandoned your son. The accusation of being an abandoned father, though technically untrue, felt painfully accurate. My marriage to Kofi's mother had ended years ago, a victim of my ambition and endless boardroom battles. I lived in my mansion primarily alone, traveling by private jet between my properties in Lagos and Accra, seeking to expand the empire, forgetting the simple human connections that mattered. Segan, sensing the gravity of the situation, tried to intervene. Jide, let's go. We have the executive meeting. No, I snapped, my eyes locked on Adwoa. Tell me everything. Adwoa took a deep breath. Kofi has a secret admirer, sir. He has developed a real passion for architecture, not finance. He spends hours sketching designs for buildings that could house the homeless people he sees on the outskirts of Nairobi. He doesn't dare tell you because he's terrified of your disappointment. He's trying to be the son you want, not the man he needs to be. The words painted a vivid, painful picture of my son's inner turmoil. I realized my relentless ambition had created a suffocating environment for Kofi. I saw the fallout, not legal or financial, but the crushing emotional weight on a boy trying to earn his cold-hearted father's distant approval. This wasn't a joke anymore, it was a devastating family drama. I reached for my wallet, my hand trembling, pulling out a business card. This ends now, Adwoa. I want to see this community center. I want to talk to Kofi. You are no longer just a waitress. You are coming with me to Nairobi. She looked down at the card, my name, my office number, my limousine service number. She smiled sadly, a ghost of pity in her eyes. I cannot just leave my job, Mr. Okoro. I have obligations. But I will do this for Kofi. I will meet you at the Nairobi Serena Hotel tomorrow afternoon. And if you dare to stand me up, I will tell Kofi that his father is not only rich but fundamentally dishonest. The cliffhanger was a dare. She had shifted the power dynamic entirely. I, the great Jide Okoro, was now beholden to a waitress over the fate of my own son. I knew I had to accept her terms, or risk losing the only thing I valued more than my fortune. I took the private jet to Nairobi that afternoon, an uncomfortable silence riding with me in the opulent cabin. It felt less like a flight for business and more like a forced pilgrimage. Segan, my CFO, was visibly confused, occasionally glancing over at me as I stared out the window, watching the patchwork fields of Ghana turn into the vast sprawl of Kenya. The power struggle in the office, the threat to my fortune, suddenly felt distant, almost trivial, compared to the revelation of my son's unhappiness. My life was a carefully constructed fortress built on the principle of emotional distance. Adwoa Asamoah, the simple waitress, had breached that fortress with 3 sentences. She was a mysterious stranger who had transformed into an unwelcome yet necessary conscience. I checked into the Nairobi Serena Hotel, securing a luxurious suite. The moment I stepped out of the limousine and into the air-conditioned lobby, my phone buzzed. It was Segan, back in Accra, panicking about the emergency boardroom vote scheduled for the next day. I dismissed him curtly, my usual focus completely fragmented. Adwoa arrived precisely on time at 3 p.m. She was not dressed in a waitress uniform. She wore a simple, well-maintained kitenge dress, a stunning, vibrant traditional fabric that seemed to pulse with life and color, contrasting sharply with the tailored gray suits of the hotel patrons. She looked beautiful, poised, and utterly out of place. This was a true African lady, carrying herself with dignity. I led her to a quiet lounge, pulling up my most imposing demeanor. All right, Adwoa. We are here on my terms. You will explain your relationship with Kofi and what he needs. You will not lecture me on my parenting. And you will not attempt to exploit this situation financially. She sat down, serene. I am not here for your terms, Mr. Okoro. I am here for Kofi's heart. And for the last time, I do not want your money. I volunteer to help children because I was once one of the homeless children you now ignore. I am proof of what a little support can achieve. My only payment is seeing Kofi smile honestly. Her mention of being homeless jarred me. I had dismissed the poor girl as simply struggling, not realizing the depth of her resilience. My heart, which I always believed to be cold-hearted, felt a surprising, dull ache. I realized I was facing a woman whose life story was a testament to destiny and fierce self-determination, qualities I admired in the boardroom but feared in a personal confrontation. We spent the next 2 hours in a tense, intimate discussion. Adwoa described Kofi's passion for design, showing me photographs she had secretly taken of his detailed architectural sketches, plans for community housing built using local, sustainable materials. plans that had nothing to do with fortune or corporate finance. The boy was a visionary and I had been blind. She also revealed the depth of his anxiety. Kofi believes that you and his mother, who are now separated, only trust restored through him being a success, meaning a financial genius like you. He is carrying the burden of your shattered family on his young shoulders, Mr. Okoro. That is what needs a second chance, your relationship with him. The consequences of my emotional neglect were laid bare. The irony was devastating. I had been so obsessed with building my empire that I had nearly destroyed my family. What about this community center? I asked, finally softening. Tell me about it. Why do you spend all your time there? Adwoa's face lit up, a genuine smile, a miracle of warmth piercing my gloom. The Umoja Center. It's small on the edge of the city. We teach everything from literacy to basic coding. We show the children in the slums that they have options. Kofi comes because he finds unity there, a sense of belonging he doesn't feel at his expensive boarding school. He is actually respected there for his drawings, not for his father's bank account. This was it. The low point. My reputation as a kind father was a lie. My son found solace among strangers. I knew then that Adwoa wasn't the joke, I was. Take me there, I commanded, standing up abruptly. Now, I need to see where my son finds his real life. And I need to apologize to him properly. Adwoa's eyes narrowed slightly. You cannot just walk in, Mr. Okoro. You are too big, too loud. You will overwhelm them and you will humiliate Kofi. We must go undercover. You must see the real struggle, the real hope, through a different lens. She was asking me, the great Jide Okoro, to hide the identity of the billionaire. It was an unprecedented demand, yet I knew she was right. Fine, I conceded, pulling off my expensive Swiss watch and handing it to Segan, who had come to check on me. Get me a simple local shirt and trousers. I am going to the Umoja Center tonight. Adwoa stood, her gaze steady. Good. But I have one more condition for this partnership. The power struggle in Accra? The money you are hemorrhaging? I want you to tell me everything. Every financial betrayed detail. I want to know the scope of your problem so I can tell you if you are truly facing ruin, or just running from your own life. Remember, you asked a waitress for financial advice. It was the ultimate cliffhanger. She had not only secured access to my son but was now demanding access to my confidential business dealings. I had no choice. I was trusting a total stranger with my two most valuable assets, my son and my empire. The clothes Adwoa sourced for me were painfully ordinary, a simple faded kaftan shirt and sturdy worn trousers, purchased from a local market in Nairobi. They smelled faintly of sun-dried cotton and spices, a sharp contrast to the sterile, expensive scent of my mansion and limousine. I felt exposed, stripped bare of the armor that was my wealth. My driver, whom I instructed to wait blocks away, looked at me with open shock. He had never seen his billionaire boss look so much like a regular man. Adwoa met me outside the car, her smile wry. Perfect. You look like a prosperous uncle visiting from the village. Just keep your mouth shut about private jet movements and don't try to buy anyone the entire school supply store. You are Jide and you are here to help paint. The Umoja Center was located in a busy, densely populated area, far from the polished corporate towers where I usually operated. It was vibrant, bustling, and clearly struggling, the paint peeling, the courtyard cracked, yet overflowing with children's laughter and the sound of music. Local popular music, not the classical scores I preferred. The atmosphere was one of palpable unity. As we walked through the gate, Adwoa introduced me simply as Jide, an old family friend who is looking for a second chance to give back. I felt my face flush with the lie, the sheer hypocrisy of my presence. The children, mostly from homeless or deeply struggling backgrounds, regarded me with open curiosity, not the deference I was used to. It was humbling. My immediate task was to help organize a supply room. It was mundane, back-breaking labor. I, who had built a multi-billion-dollar empire through the force of my will, was stacking dusty boxes of donated textbooks. Every muscle screamed in protest. I realized this work, this simple, honest effort, felt more real than any boardroom negotiation I'd executed in years. Then I saw him. Kofi. He was sitting under a shade tree, not on his phone, not reading an economic journal, but bent over a huge sheet of paper, a ruler and pencil moving with intense focus. He wasn't alone. Beside him sat a girl, slightly older, with intelligent eyes. They were discussing a design for a new, small classroom structure. That's Pendo, Adwoa whispered, gesturing toward the girl. She's the only one who sees Kofi's architectural potential. They are planning a prototype for an eco-friendly dwelling. He's an absolute wonder when he feels safe to be himself. I watched my son. His brow was furrowed in concentration, but his expression was relaxed, genuinely happy. He was teaching Pendo how to calculate load-bearing stresses, and she was teaching him how to sketch materials indigenous to the region. He wasn't the withdrawn, anxious boy I knew from his expensive school. He was animated, vibrant, and filled with a passion I had never seen. This was the miracle I had been searching for. The emotional consequences of my previous neglect were now starkly clear. I turned to Adwoa, my voice thick. You were right. I've been suffocating him. He's going to resent me forever for making him feel like his only option was my fortune. He won't resent you, Jide, if you stop being a cold-hearted businessman and start being a soft-hearted father, Adwoa said gently, handing me a damp cloth. He needs your acceptance, not your cash. That's the family value he's been abandoned without. That night, after the center closed, Adwoa and I sat in a small local chop bar eating spiced goat and ugali, far from the hotel's sterile dining room. I felt compelled to follow through on her condition, the full financial confession. I had brought only my laptop, leaving my security detail miles away. The power struggle is real, I started, my voice barely a whisper against the bustling street noise. The problem isn't the $50 million quarterly loss. It's the origin of the loss. For the last 5 years, I have been diverting small, steady amounts of money, hundreds of thousands here, a couple of million there, from my primary holdings into a failing mining venture in Namibia. I believed I could turn it around, but it was a drain. I opened my laptop, showing her the complex, multi-layered spreadsheets. But the betrayal, Adwoa, it's from within. Segan, my CFO, my loyal worker who was supposed to be in on the diversion, has been inflating the losses to panic the shareholders. He is colluding with my brother Uche, who I suspect has always been a secret admirer of my CEO position. They are staging a takeover vote, claiming I have mismanaged the company into ruin. They want to show the world that I betrayed the company's trust restored in me. I had confessed the full scope of the threat to my empire and my fortune. A threat that was not just financial but deeply personal, rooted in family treachery. The emotional fallout was suffocating. Adwoa pored over the financials with an intense concentration that belied her simple background. She didn't look at the large numbers. She focused on the flow, the anomalies, the timing. After 10 silent minutes, she looked up, wiping her greasy fingers on a napkin. Her analysis was swift, precise, and shocking. This isn't a loss, Jide. This is an orchestrated hemorrhaging, she stated, pointing to a series of high-volume wire transfers labeled vendor payables, Lagos office. They aren't just taking the money. They are laundering it through a shell company disguised as a long-term supplier. Your brother and Segan aren't just trying to take over the company, they are trying to completely wipe you out and destroy your reputation. They are using the financial panic as a smokescreen. She had seen the consequences instantly. This was not a boardroom squabble, it was theft, and it was devastating proof of how deeply I had been betrayed. The advice you need, Adwoa said, leaning in, her eyes shining with fierce intelligence, is not about cutting costs. It's about creating a paper trail of poetic justice. You need to prove the theft before they cast the vote. You can't fight them with finance, you have to fight them with their own emotional corruption. She had provided the financial advice I had jokingly sought, and it was brilliant. But then she added the necessary, emotional component, delivering the cliffhanger that tied my personal life back to the crisis. And to get that proof, Jide, you need to go home. You need to use your son's passion, the only true thing you have left, as your weapon. Kofi's architectural designs, the ones he showed me, are perfect for this. I have an idea that connects your life with his destiny. I stared at her, the soft-hearted waitress who saw through my cold-hearted defenses, and I knew I had found my miracle. I was ready to use my son's dreams to save my empire. The chop bar in Nairobi had transformed into the most critical boardroom of my life. The air was thick with the scent of spices and the weight of my impending ruin. Jide Okoro, the master strategist who had built an empire from nothing, was taking orders from Adwoa Asamoah, the waitress. The irony wasn't lost on me. This was the humbling, painful destiny I had unknowingly invited. Here is the plan, Adwoa began, her eyes gleaming with a focused intensity that made me realize her simple life had not been a life of leisure, but a constant, struggling fight for survival and second chance for others. She was a mysterious stranger no more, she was my essential partner. We cannot simply expose the wire transfers you found. Segan and Uche are too careful. They've built layers of protection, vendor agreements, offshore accounts. We need to catch them red-handed, demonstrating collusion, not just transaction. She pointed to the architectural sketches of Kofi. The innocent child's passion was about to become the core of corporate espionage. Your son's designs, Adwoa explained, tapping the paper. Kofi drew up plans for a sustainable, low-cost housing development, the kind of project your cold-hearted brother Uche, who is always the secret admirer of your position, would publicly ridicule but privately crave for its massive, politically favorable contracts. We are going to use this to bait them. My mind, already whirring with the sudden pivot from finance to family, started to grasp the sheer brilliance of the plot. You're suggesting a false bid, I stated, leaning over the table, captivated. We introduced Kofi's project as a massive new subsidiary of Okoro Global, a major investment to stabilize the company and show the shareholders I still have vision. This will infuriate Uche because it's a family-based, soft-hearted venture he despises, but the potential fortune will make him greedy. Exactly, Adwoa affirmed. And Segan, your loyal worker who betrayed you, has been laundering money through vendor payables. We need to create a false, urgent payable connected to this new housing subsidiary, something large enough to interest them, but small enough not to panic the markets. This payable, let's call it the Umoja Community Foundation Seed Fund, will require immediate authorization from both the CFO and the acting CEO, Uche. We will plant documents that suggest this seed fund is the first step in transferring a huge public works contract away from their control. The consequences of this action were immediate. It would force them to move fast and carelessly. We were betting on their arrogance and greed to make them fumble. The key, Adwoa continued, her voice low and urgent, is the timing of the boardroom vote. You must fly back to Accra immediately. You need to look tired, desperate, ready to concede. You need to make them feel comfortable and victorious. Before you leave, you must authorize a specific one-time use encrypted login for Segan to access the final wire transfer authorization for this seed fund. This access will log their conversation and keystrokes on the company's internal server, proving their collusion, not just the money transfer. I realized the gravity of the risk. This was not a business move. This was a personal vendetta wrapped in a corporate strategy. If I failed, I wouldn't just lose my empire, I would confirm to the world and to my son that I was a failed, abandoned man. But who handles the surveillance? I asked. If they suspect anything, the plan is ruined. We need someone they would never, ever suspect of corporate espionage. Adwoa's face held a look of quiet determination. I will. I am the least suspicious person you know. I will use the funds you gave me for the first night's hotel stay, the money I refused to take, to secure a tiny, cheap room near the Okoro Global headquarters in Lagos. I will work with the only person I truly trust restored in this situation, Kofi. My shock was palpable. Kofi? Absolutely not. He is an innocent child. I won't put him in danger. Danger? Jide, he is in danger of losing his father to this power struggle. He is smart. He knows the digital world better than anyone. He will not be on the ground. He will be my technical support, working from his boarding school room in Nairobi. He will monitor the encrypted login after Segan and Uche access it. His unity with us is essential. He needs to see his father fighting for the truth, not just for the stock price. The choice was impossible yet logical. I had to let my son participate in the fight for his father's second chance. This entire crisis was ultimately about restoring our family, demonstrating that love wins over greed. I spent the rest of the night with Adwoa, mapping out every detail of the counter-heist, using the back of a worn menu and Kofi's architectural drawings. We worked tirelessly, fueled by strong locally brewed coffee. She was sharp, asking about legal loopholes, shareholder bylaws, and the exact protocols for vendor payables that Segan would have to violate. She even had the foresight to insist that all the evidence be backed up off-site in the cloud, to ensure a miracle of digital recovery if they destroyed the main servers. As the sun began to rise over Nairobi, painting the sky in colors of orange and gold that felt like a new beginning, the plan was finalized. I need to give you my limousine driver's access code for the Lagos headquarters garage, I said, handing her a key card. You will need access to the private entrance the night before the vote. You have to plant a final piece of bait, a folder labeled confidential, Umoja contract details on Segan's desk. That folder must contain a letter from me to the board, subtly confirming that the Umoja project is my personal destiny now, a non-negotiable healing project. Adwoa took the key card, her expression sober. I understand. We are using my low profile and Kofi's intelligence to outmaneuver their money and their pride. This isn't just about saving your fortune, Jide. It's about securing a happy ending for your son. That's the family value we're fighting for. I knew I was leaving my future, my empire, my reputation, and my relationship with Kofi, in the hands of this incredible, soft-hearted lady. As I prepared to board my private jet back to Accra, I saw a message pop up on the encrypted line I had set up for the operation. It was from Kofi, his part of the mission already beginning. Kofi, Jide, I've established the digital tripwire. Tell Sister Adwoa that the only way to expose a corrupt blueprint is with a stronger, honest one. Good luck. The simple message from my innocent child confirmed the gravity of the situation and the incredible unity we had found in this crisis. I felt a surge of resolve. The cold-hearted mask was permanently broken. I looked at Adwoa, standing small but formidable against the vastness of the airport tarmac. I will see you in Lagos, Adwoa. And when this is over, I promise you the Umoja Center will get more than just a seed fund. It will get a miracle. She just nodded, a silent promise in her eyes. The ultimate cliffhanger wasn't the corporate vote. It was the trust one was placing in this mysterious stranger. I was flying straight into the jaws of a corporate betrayal, armed only with a waitress's wisdom and my son's architectural dreams. Absolutely. We are entering the highest tension phase of the story. Chapter 6 will focus on the execution of the counterplan in Lagos, the setting for the power struggle, showcasing Adwoa's courage and the immediate consequences of the trap. We will maintain the high rhythm and the 1,800-word chapter length, incorporating the remaining themes. The silent halls of the Okoro global headquarters in Lagos held more danger than any market slum. Tonight, the poor girl was the phantom key, and the billionaire's brother was about to walk right into her destiny. I arrived back in Accra, flying commercially to maintain the facade of a man scrambling, a cold-hearted failure whose fortune was slipping away. I left the private jet parked in Nairobi. The next morning, I entered the boardroom looking haggard, allowing Uche, my brother and the secret admirer of my throne, and Segan, my loyal worker-turned-traitor, to bask in their perceived victory. They looked smug, radiating an arrogance that made my stomach churn. I had never felt such fury, such an intense emotional consequence of their betrayal. The first hours of the pre-vote meeting were a charade. I feigned defensiveness, focusing only on the $50 million loss, exactly as they expected. Meanwhile, Adwoa was in Lagos, executing the critical phase of the plan. Adwoa used my driver's access code under the cloak of midnight. The Lagos headquarters, a skyscraper of glass and polished marble, was usually a monument to my empire. That night, it was a silent, imposing tomb. Adwoa navigated the empty, echoing parking garage, her simple kitenge dress feeling utterly out of place amidst the limousine fleet. She moved with the quiet grace of someone who understood how to be invisible, a necessary skill learned from being homeless and struggling. She reached the executive floor, Segan's office, using a temporary access card I had set up. The objective: plant the physical bait. On the center of Segan's vast, uncluttered mahogany desk, she placed a manila folder labeled in bold, stark letters: Confidential, Umoja Contract Details, Personal Destiny Project. Inside the folder was the crucial document, a letter addressed to the Okoro Global Board, written by me but crafted by Adwoa, announcing the Umoja project as a personal, non-negotiable healing initiative, a massive $500 million investment into sustainable architecture inspired by my son, Kofi. It was designed to trigger Uche and Segan's greed while provoking their deepest contempt for my sudden softness. The letter detailed the creation of the Umoja Community Foundation Seed Fund, and warned the board against any interference with the fund's immediate disbursement. Adwoa worked swiftly, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She was not only placing the bait but performing a vital second task: planting a tiny, encrypted recording device that would capture the actual real-time conversation between Segan and Uche when they discovered the file and moved to execute their own counterplan. This was the final piece of the trap, the irrefutable evidence of collusion. This was the moment of destiny she had to seize. Just as she was adjusting the device behind a heavy, African bronze paperweight, the security door hissed open. Uche. He had returned to the office late, paranoid, checking for any last-minute defensive moves I might make before the vote. He was utterly shocked to find Adwoa, the mysterious stranger, in the CEO's inner sanctum. "Who are you?" Uche bellowed, his voice echoing in the deserted hallway, instantly recognizing the breach of security. "Security? Get in here now." Adwoa, her back against the wall, maintained her composure with a terrifying, absolute calm. She was the soft-hearted woman facing the cold-hearted predator. "I am Adwoa Asamoah, Mr. Okoro's personal assistant," she lied smoothly, pointing to the folder on the desk. He sent me to deliver this. The Umoja contract is a personal project. He told me to wait for your sign-off before leaving. Uche's eyes darted from Adwoa to the folder. Greed warred with suspicion on his face. He saw the potential fortune of a $500 million project and, simultaneously, the risk of it being controlled by his despised brother. Wait outside, Uche snapped, already moving to grab the file, the bait working perfectly. I will review this immediately. You have no business being in here. Go. As Adwoa walked out, she sent a quick, encrypted message to Kofi's burner phone in Nairobi. Code red. They have the bait. Initiate monitoring protocol now. Minutes later, Uche called Sigan, who was still in Accra, and ordered him to fly back to Lagos immediately. The recording device captured everything. Sigan, you absolute idiot, Jide's gone soft. He's throwing $500 million at some charity architectural project his son cooked up. Uche's voice was venomous. We have to stop this miracle of his before it gets through the board. It will make him look like a martyr and it'll cut into our fortune. Sigan's voice, captured in the recording hours later when he arrived in Lagos, was the sound of pure panic. Uche, we can't just stop it. We have to redirect it. The seed fund authorization is scheduled for tomorrow morning. We must process it but route the funds to our shell company. We'll authorize the smaller seed fund but link it to the inflated vendor payables we created. It'll look like an error, but it gives us the money, and we can blame Jide for reckless spending right before the vote. No one will notice the betrayal in the chaos. We get the money and we get the company. It's a clean kill. Do it, Sigan, Uche confirmed, his voice heavy with self-congratulation. This is the final, greatest consequence for my brother's negligence. He's finished. He gets a second chance at poverty. The recording had captured the full scope of their conspiracy. The admission of using the inflated vendor payables to steal from the company and the clear intent to sabotage a project linked to my son. It was the irrefutable evidence of both financial theft and personal betrayal. The trap was a complete success. Meanwhile, back in the Accra boardroom, I was fielding questions, looking defeated. I knew the evidence was secured, but I needed to maintain the facade until the perfect moment. The call came from Kofi. An encrypted, brief message. Father, the evidence is secured and backed up. The architectural design became the key. I feel the unity of family. I'm proud of you. The relief was a physical wave. My cold-hearted resolve had cracked entirely. My son, my innocent child, had secured my empire. This was the greatest happy ending I could have asked for. I stood up, signaling the end of the meeting just hours before the formal vote. My composure was now absolute, fueled by the knowledge of their impending poetic justice. Gentlemen, I said, my voice resonating with a power they hadn't heard in weeks. Before the final vote, I have one last presentation. It's not about the $50 million loss. It's about the $500 million betrayal of trust. I looked directly at Sigan and Uche. Their smug smiles evaporated into thin air, replaced by a terrible realization. The cliffhanger was their imminent exposure. Please step into the executive hall. I believe you need to meet the woman who is about to demonstrate the true consequences of your greed. The evidence, now in the hands of my legal team in both Accra and Lagos, was ready to be presented. I was about to reveal that the soft-hearted approach was actually the most ruthless form of justice. The executive hall in the Accra headquarters felt suddenly charged, the air thick with impending catastrophe. I led the assembled shareholders and directors, most of whom were already convinced of my financial negligence, into the adjacent viewing suite. Uche and Sigan followed, their expressions ranging from icy confusion to outright panic. They knew intuitively that the game had changed. They had walked straight into my destiny. Gentlemen, ladies, I began, my voice steady, betraying none of the internal turmoil the last few days had wrought. 4 weeks, you have been concerned with the $50 million quarterly loss. I admit, I mismanaged a smaller venture in Namibia. But that was a distraction. The real issue is the deliberate, coordinated theft, the betrayal orchestrated by individuals who believed my cold-hearted focus on fortune meant I was blind to their greed. I clicked a remote. A massive screen dropped down, displaying the Okoro Global logo. Then a voice filled the room, clear, smug, and utterly damning. It was the recording from Sigan's office in Lagos. Uche, we can't just stop it. We have to redirect it. The seed fund authorization is scheduled for tomorrow morning. We must process it but route the funds to our shell company. We'll authorize the smaller seed fund but link it to the inflated vendor payables we created. It's a clean kill. Segan's face, always so composed, went ashen. Uche's jaw dropped, his pretense of innocence shattering instantly. The room erupted in gasps. The evidence was irrefutable. The admission of using the fake vendor payables to steal millions and the clear intent to sabotage the future of the empire. This was not merely a loss, it was criminal fraud. The consequences were swift and brutal. My legal team, coordinated by my counsel in Lagos, immediately moved to freeze all assets related to the shell corporations and secure the servers containing the full paper trail of the funds. Uniformed police, already waiting outside, entered the room and formally placed Uche and Segan under arrest. The power struggle was over. Uche, his face contorted in a mask of fury and humiliation, lunged at me. You used that common waitress, that poor girl and your innocent child to set me up. This is not fair. I was your secret admirer of power. I deserved this fortune. I stood my ground, my eyes unwavering. You deserve justice, Uche. And you deserve to know that the common waitress, Adwoa Asamoah, is the most intelligent person I have met in 10 years. And my son, Kofi, whose architectural dreams you mocked, is the one who secured the evidence that saved this company. The second chance you'll get will be in a courtroom, not in this boardroom. As they were escorted out, the shareholders, utterly stunned, rushed forward. But I didn't want their congratulations. I wanted something much more important. The vote is suspended, I announced. The charges are filed. The company is safe. Now, I must address something personal. I walked to the corner of the room where Adwoa was waiting. She had flown in on a commercial flight earlier that morning and watched the confrontation from a private room. She looked tired, but her dignity was absolute. She was no longer a mysterious stranger. She was the silent architect of my liberation. I took her hand and brought her into the center of the hall. The room, filled with Africa's corporate elite, watched in stunned silence. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, my voice thick with emotion, this is Adwoa Asamoah. She saw through my arrogance when no one else dared. She reminded me that my greatest abandoned asset was not my company stock, but my son's heart. She showed me the value of unity and the true meaning of a soft-hearted approach to business. And I want to announce right here today that the Umoja project, the one Uche and Segan sought to steal from, is going ahead. It will be the largest philanthropic project in Okoro Global's history. Adwoa squeezed my hand, a silent signal of trust restored. The shareholders, recognizing the profound shift in their cold-hearted CEO, watched with a mixture of curiosity and respect. This was the true new beginning of the Okoro Empire. That evening, I did not go home to my mansion. I flew back to Nairobi immediately. The most important resolution was not corporate, it was familial. I found Kofi at the Umoja Center, drawing under the same shade tree. He looked up, his eyes widening. I dismissed my security team and walked up to him alone. He stood tentative. Father, the company. Did the plan work? He asked, the anxiety palpable. I knelt before him, an action I hadn't performed since he was a small child. I was still the billionaire, but I was also a man seeking forgiveness. It worked, Kofi. The company is safe. But it worked because of your intelligence, your heart, and your beautiful designs. And I am sorry. I am so sorry for being a cold-hearted father who focused on the fortune and ignored your real destiny. Tears welled up in Kofi's eyes, an innocent child's vulnerability finally exposed. I just wanted you to be proud of me, Papa. I was so afraid to tell you I didn't want the boardroom. I am proud of you, Kofi. More than you could ever know. The Umoja project is going to be your project. I want you to design it, to lead it. You will teach me how to build something with healing and heart, not just profit. Kofi hugged me then, tightly, the embrace a miracle of trust restored. The vast limousine and private jet world I inhabited felt suddenly meaningless. The only thing that mattered was this moment of unity and genuine happy ending. The next day, Adwoa, Kofi, and I stood together at the Umoja Center. I formally announced the funding for the massive Umoja project. I was keeping my promise. Adwoa, I said, turning to her. I owe you my company, my son, and my life. I need you to stay. I don't want you to be a waitress anymore. I want you to be the director of the Okoro Global Foundation, overseeing the Umoja project and every charitable venture we launch. You will be compensated not just with a salary, but with a stake in the company. This is a new beginning for all of us. Adwoa looked at me, her eyes filled with a soft-hearted blend of respect and affection. She had started as a poor girl I mocked and ended as my partner in destiny. She gave me a slight, beautiful smile. Mr. Okoro, I will accept. But only on the condition that you continue to show up here in your simple clothes and help us paint. and that you remember that the true empire is built on people, not paper. Agreed, I said, extending my hand in a gesture of partnership and deep respect. The months that followed the dramatic confrontation in Accra were the most transformative of my life. The empire, now purged of the traitors Uche and Segan, stabilized quickly under renewed confidence. But the true focus was the Umoja project in Nairobi. Jide Okoro was no longer defined by my private jet and limousine fleet. I spent less time in the sterile boardroom and more time on the construction site. My days were filled not with calculating quarterly losses, but with discussing sustainable materials with Kofi and Adwoa. I learned that the soft-hearted approach Adwoa championed was not weakness, but an unparalleled strength. It built loyalty, inspired unity, and secured a future far more valuable than any fleeting fortune. Kofi, my innocent child, thrived. He had found his destiny. The architectural genius he had hidden for fear of disappointing his cold-hearted father was now celebrated. He won a prestigious Youth Design Award for the Umoja housing project, proving that a second chance at life, guided by honest passion, was the only miracle needed. Our relationship underwent profound healing. We were father and son again, connected by shared purpose, not just blood. Adwoa, the former poor girl and waitress, was a revelation as the director of the Okoro Global Foundation. She handled budgets larger than many small companies, utilizing the sharpness she demonstrated when analyzing my corporate spreadsheets. She had moved out of her struggling life and into an apartment in Lagos, but she never forgot her roots or the people she met when she was homeless. Her commitment to forgiveness and restoration made the foundation a true beacon of new beginning. Our professional partnership had deepened into something undeniable. Adwoa was a constant presence in my life, a quiet, powerful force that kept my ego in check and my heart open. She was the final piece of my healing. One evening, after returning from a grueling but deeply satisfying day at the Umoja construction site, I found Adwoa waiting for me in the garden of my mansion. She was wearing the vibrant kitenge dress she wore the day she came to the hotel in Nairobi, a silent reminder of how far we had come from that initial cold joke. I walked towards her, shedding the last remnants of my cold-hearted corporate facade. Adwoa, I began, my voice husky with emotion. When I asked you for financial advice as a joke, I wanted a solution for a $50 million problem. You gave me a solution for a $1 billion problem, and for a problem I didn't know I had, the emptiness in my own life. I reached into my pocket, not pulling out a spreadsheet but a small velvet box. This was the moment of the happy ending, the final necessary commitment that defined my destiny. You are no longer a mysterious stranger to me. You are my partner, my conscience, and my greatest second chance, I said, opening the box to reveal a simple, elegant ring, not flashy like the jewelry my former wife preferred, but solid, like the trust restored she had given me. I don't want to face another day, another boardroom challenge, or another moment of triumph without you beside me. Will you marry me, Adwoa? Will you help me build this new beginning, not just for the foundation but for us? Adwoa's eyes welled up with tears, her soft-hearted nature shining through. She looked at the ring, then at me, the billionaire who had finally learned the value of a single humble life. Jide Okoro, she whispered, her voice full of forgiveness and love. You asked me for advice once. Now I will give you my final, best advice. Love wins. Yes, I will marry you. The kiss we shared was a promise of a future built on authenticity, humility, and the powerful lesson that every life, from the man commanding a private jet to the lady serving a coffee, holds immense, often hidden, potential. The final consequence of my arrogance was happiness. The cold-hearted man found his healing in the arms of the poor girl he was foolish enough to mock. My fortune was no longer measured in dollars, but in the unity of my new family and the genuine smiles of the children at the Umoja Center. The story of the billionaire and the waitress became the story of Jide and Adwoa, a true miracle of love and destiny that proved true wealth is found not in what you possess, but in how much you give. And that is the powerful, emotional story of Jide and Adwoa, a reminder that a humble heart can teach the greatest lessons to the mightiest of men. Did you feel the drama? Did you believe in their happy ending? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What life lesson did you take away from Jide's journey? Comment below.